Alright, so it's time once again to press pause and attempt the following question, that is, find the quotient and remainder when x cubed minus 4x squared minus 7x minus 5 is divided by x minus 1. Now remember, when you're done, to press play and check your answers out against mine. Alright, so welcome back. Now because this is a little bit more involved, what I've actually decided to do is actually go through and explain, just like I did before. So let's go through and do that. We're going to have x cubed minus 4x squared minus 7x minus 5 is divided by x minus 1. So what we're going to have is our x minus 1 goes out the front, because that's what we're dividing it by, and then we're going to write the polynomial here, x cubed minus 4x squared minus 7x minus 5. Just continue it on there. Alright, so the very first step is to go through and divide. So when we divide, what we do is we go the x cubed divided by the x. So that's going to get us x squared. Now the next thing to do is step 2, so that is x squared times x, so that's going to get us x cubed. X squared times negative 1 is negative x squared. Step 3 is to subtract. So we go subtract x cubed minus x cubed is 0. Negative 4x squared minus negative x squared will get us negative 3x squared, because it actually becomes negative 4 minus negative is a positive. So you get negative 3x squared. And then the last step is drag. So you go minus 7x when we bring this one down here like so. Remembering to keep all of our x squareds and x cubes in the same line. Alright, once again we go through and we repeat the process. So you go divide. So you go negative 3x squared divided by x. Well, that's going to get us negative 3x. Step 1's been done. What do we do next? Well, it's step 2, which is multiply. So you go negative 3x times x is negative 3x squared. Negative 3x times negative 1 is positive 3x. Excellent, I've now multiplied. What do? Bada bing, bada boom. Let's now subtract. So I subtract it, put it in brackets and subtract everything. Negative 3x squared minus negative 3x squared actually cancels each other out, so you're going to get 0, which is always a good thing. That's what we want there. Alright, and you get negative 7x minus positive 3x. Well, that's going to be negative 7 minus positive 3 is equal to negative 10x. So we've now subtracted, and what's the last step? Well, it says to drag, so we drag this bad boy all the way down here, so you get negative 5. Right, I've done all my 4 steps. I go back around to divide. That's right. So I divide now negative 10x by x. Well, that's going to be equal to negative 10. Negative 10 times x is equal to negative 10x. Negative 10 times negative 1. Well, that's going to be equal to positive 10. I put brackets around it now because I'm up to divided by. So I go negative 10x minus negative 10x. Yes, it cancels out, so that's awesome. And negative 5 minus 10 is equal to negative 15. Last thing to do is drag it. So we will drag this one up because we've got nothing to drag down. So our remainder is equal to negative 15. So our quotient is equal to x squared minus 3x minus 10. And our remainder is equal to negative 15. And there we have it. When you divide x cubed minus 4x squared minus 7x minus 5 by x minus 1, you get x squared minus 3x minus 10 with a remainder of 15.
Fantastic, guys. Now, when performing long division, it might not always be given to us in a nice pretty little form that looks like this. That is, they might actually be given to us in a form that looks like this, or a form that looks like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a couple of worked examples that require us to transform these ones into something that once again looks like this. So let's check that out.
Alright, so as you can see, these questions have been written out slightly differently, but of course it's going to require the same type of working out. So that is, it says state the quotient remainder for the following. In the case of A, it's 2x to the power of 4 plus x cubed minus 4x plus 3 divided by x plus 1. And in B, it's x cubed minus 7x plus 1 divided by x plus 5. So the very first thing we need to do is go through and make sure we write it out in the correct place. Now, because we're dividing this top one here by the x plus 1, what we're going to do is going to move the x plus 1 out to the front of the division symbol. So you go x plus 1, write the division thing here, and now we're going to write 2x to the power of 4 plus x cubed. Now this is the exciting part. Because there's no x squareds in here, I actually need to put in a placeholder of plus 0x squared minus 4x plus 3. Just continue that along here. Now the very first step is to go through and, of course, step 1 says divide. So you go 2x to the power of 4 divided by x, well that's going to be 2x cubed. Once I've divided, I go through and I multiply. So you go 2x cubed multiplied by x is equal to 2x to the power of 4. 2x cubed multiplied by 1 gets me plus 2x cubed. I now go through, and the third step is to subtract. So I subtract the whole lot. That, of course, is going to get me 0, which is what we're looking for. X cubed minus 2x cubed is actually going to be equal to negative x cubed. So I subtracted, and now I go through and I drag. So I drag down the 0x squared. Excellent. Next thing to do, I've gone around once, so I've got to go through again. So you go divide. So you go negative x cubed divided by x is equal to negative x squared. Negative x squared times x is equal to negative x cubed. Negative x squared times 1 is equal to negative x squared. I now go through, and step 3 of course is subtract. So I subtract the whole lot. Negative x cubed minus negative x cubed, ripper, it's going to be 0. 0x squared minus negative x squared, or 0 minus negative x squared is going to be positive x squared. And now I've subtracted, I go through, my step 4 is of course drag. So I take all this all the way down here, it's going to get me negative 4x. So I've dragged, now what I need to do is I'm back to step 1 again, which is divide. So you go x squared divided by the x is going to be just x. X times x is x squared, x times 1 is x. Okay, so now I've just multiplied, I go through and I subtract, so I put the brackets around, I subtract. X squared minus x squared, awesome, it's 0 again, so that's where we know we're on the right track. Negative 4x minus x is equal to negative 5x. And now that I've subtracted, I drag this all the way down here. So it's going to give me plus 3. Now negative 5x divided by x, well the x's are going to cancel out, just like if I wrote negative 5x over x here, the x's will cancel out. So that's going to get me negative 5 up here, and negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times 1 is equal to negative 5. Put brackets around, and I subtract. So negative 5x minus negative 5x, 0, awesome. 3 minus negative 5, well that's going to be equal to 8. So now I've subtracted, I go through and I drag. Now there's nothing to drag down, so that must mean that when I drag this up, this becomes my remainder. The remainder is 8. So the quotient is equal to 2x cubed minus x squared plus x minus 5, and the remainder is equal to 8. Alright, so it's time to press pause once again and attempt the following question. That is x cubed minus 7x plus 1 divided by x plus 5. Of course, when you're done, make sure you press play and check your solutions against mine. Alright, so welcome back once again. Now, I've written out x cubed minus 7x plus 1 divided by x plus 5 like you can see here. So I've written my x plus 5 out the front because that's what we're dividing it by. And I've written x cubed minus 7x plus 1. But, as you can see, there's no x squareds in here, so what I need to do is put in a placeholder of 0x squared in order for it to work. Now, very first step to do is to go through and divide x cubed by x. That there is going to get us our x squared, which you can see here, written above our x squared there. So I've now gone through and I've divided, so the next step is to multiply. So you go x squared multiplied by x is going to be x cubed, and x squared multiplied by 5 is going to be 5x squared. Step 3 is subtract. So when I subtract, I write the brackets around there and I subtract. X cubed minus x cubed is 0, which is what we're always looking for when we subtract, and our 0x squared minus 5x squared is equal to negative 5x squared. Excellent, step 3 of subtracting's done. What do I do for step 4? It's drag. So I go, take it down here, negative 7x comes down to here. Right, I've now done all of my 4 steps. I go through and I repeat. So to do that, I go negative 5x squared divided by x is equal to negative 5x. Negative 5x times x is equal to negative 5x squared, and negative 5x times 5 is equal to negative 25x. So that's step 2 done. Step 3 is to go through and subtract. So I've gone divide, multiply, subtract. So negative 5x squared minus negative 5x squared is 0. Awesome, that's what we're looking for whenever we subtract. And negative 7x minus negative 25x, well that's going to be equal to 18. Divide, multiply, subtract, and drag. So we drag this down here, and that brings me my 1 there. Now what you can see here is I've gone through divide, multiply, subtract, drag again. I start again with divide. So 18x divided by x is positive 18. Divide, then it's multiply. So multiply is 18 times x is 18x. 18 times 5 is equal to 90. So I've gone divide, multiply, now I go subtract again. So it goes subtract. 18x minus 18x is 0. 1 minus 90 is equal to negative 89. So I've gone divide, multiply, subtract, and of course my last thing to do is drag. Now I've got nothing to drag down, so therefore I drag this up here, and that means that my remainder is equal to negative 89. So when I go through and do that, I get my quotient is equal to x squared minus 5x plus 18, and my remainder is equal to negative 89.
Excellent, guys. Now, thank you very much for tuning to today's lesson, which was all about how to long divide polynomials. Now, hopefully you've realized by now that it's just the same 4 old steps that you do over and over again in order to be able to do this. That is, divide, multiply, subtract, and drag. Or as Jerry said it, divide, multiply, subtract, and drag. Now guys, make sure you stay tuned for the very next lesson because you're going to learn all about how to find the value of a polynomial. So like always, make sure you say hi to your maths teacher for me. Morsey out. Oh, it's okay. I'm alright. Divide, multiply, subtract, and drag. Divide, multiply, subtract, and drag. Divide, multiply, subtract, and drag.